who wants to make sure that there is client satisfaction, who wants to make sure that everything is happening right at the right time. What happens?
I think at the end of the day, every person, regardless of whatever calling, or can I say,
whatever
career,
business, yes,
whatever business you'll ever do, there is that point in time where you'll be what I call tested, whether you are worthy to take on this journey of investment, because at the end of the day, it's about impact. You start as massive people doing the same business, but at the end of the day, 5 years, 10 years down the road, out of the 10 people that did the same business,
you have like 6 or something that have fallen off.
Actually, 6 is even less.
It's less.
Like 8, one part, because there is always one man standing. So what does it take for you to be that person? So you've gone through all these test stations, and at the end of the day, they also come to test what are your intentions, why are you doing what you're doing, you know, what's the aim. That's why it's always quite important. As much as you're passionate about something, carry the purpose of what you're doing. Purpose is what that will sustain you in those hard times,
The
like you've
passion.
mentioned.
The passion.
Even the purpose. Passion can die. Passion can actually die because
but
passion,
the purpose.
Yeah, but purpose and vision.
I think they're entwined. Passion and purpose. You must, if you're not, if it could be the other way around and it's interchangeable.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. What drives you to be passionate? It's because you have an end goal.
You have a purpose.
A purpose.
Yeah.
You have an end goal. There's something you want to achieve.
Yes, you have a purpose.
Like the Bible says, the end of the matter is more important.
Yeah.
So, in other words, before we do something, we have to see the end of it. So, if you've seen the end of it, then the passion will be there to reach that end. Otherwise, if you're passionate without direction, at some point you'll ask yourself, okay, I've made this business, this empire, it has made all these millions, so what next?
Goal setting is key as well. Goal setting is key. You must have a goal, because if you're just passionate about something,
you're just passionate, but you have no. Okay,
it's not clear.
It's not clear. Yeah.
It's not clear. You have not set down definitive goals. You have not set down the ways. You don't have a strategy on how to get there. You actually get frustrated in the long run. You lose quite a lot. You could lose your monies. You could end up messing up your brand because you don't have a particular strategy. No, you have a purpose, but you don't have a strategy. Yes, you have a purpose, but you don't have a strategy. Please try as much as possible. Stick with us here on Smart 24 TV. We're driving business. We will give you, of course, the latest insight. We'll keep giving you all this dose of inspiration every 8 o'clock from Monday to Friday at 8 a.m. We do have this moment where we give you that dose of inspiration. But getting back, of course, to the undertone of this conversation, can we have something on financing and compliance in construction projects, of course, navigating project funding and regulatory challenges. I talked about the fact that who is to blame? You know, in most cases, the professionals come up, the engineers, the architects, and all these, especially the engineers, the builders, really come up, and they will tell you that come up to the client and say, you know what, this particular this particular product that we need, this material that we need is around maybe 200,000. And of course the client is king. The client comes up and says, no, my budget is 200,000. Yes, my budget, I understand my budget right now, according to what I had envisioned, is 60,000. Yes, so that is the ceiling. I'm not going anywhere else. And then they haggle and negotiate. And before long, this other one saying, okay, fine, you have two products, a good one that is 200,000, and then you have one of the fake ones that is going to give you trouble at 60,000. So can you please? And you'll find some of the clients who are really very frustrated. We get to see and follow up on some of the different feedback that we have, and sometimes that we participate in on some of these different platforms. Sometimes it gets to a point where someone is saying, I've given my all, and I'm given tired, my all into this project, and this thing is not moving. This project is not moving. So it is during that time of tiredness, you're just frustrated, that in most cases you have so many clients actually preferring to go with the list just so that they can finish and enter the building. Now, when it comes to compliance, of course, and the different issues that come out of of not really complying with the quality, that's when you have problems coming up with the buildings in Uganda. So who is at, is it, because if at all, the engineer will tell you, if at all I don't do what the client wants, they will halt my particular contract and he will get another person. Yes, because if you're saying that you're too expensive, as an engineer, we've had scenarios like that. You're too expensive, I will get a cheaper one. And that's a threat as well. I will get a cheaper one who can do what I want.
I think that is, okay, it might make sense from that, if you take a look at it from that line, that you follow the client. But this is what I will say. If you construct, if you be an engineer and perhaps you undertake your first contract and something didn't go right on the building, or later on maybe, that's the record you're going to hold as an engineer for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
That you are not excellent, you're not perfect, you're not diligent at what you do. You've already branded yourself by your first project. So I would think, as much as listening to the client, what the client really thinks they really need, I think you need to be professional. You'd rather not take on that contract. Otherwise, you'd be, okay, if you know what you really want, if you know who you are, this is what we've been talking about. You're passionate about something. You are an architect. Okay, why are you doing what you do? You're an engineer. Why are you doing what you do? Is it about the money, that because the client says he's going to get somebody else to take on this contract, so I should entice them because they have a budget that favors them? But little do I know, okay, if I don't get to understand that that little budget is actually going to have a kind of what we call, it's going to have a mark on me that is going to be negative for the rest of my life, because I set up a project and it wasn't
good quality.
Good quality.
Yeah.
You know, it did
not comply.
Last long. And I think this leads me to a report here that says that Uganda's construction and housing industry is increasingly endangered by unqualified engineers. And it has been quite a vocal message there, prompting a call for urgent intervention by the government ministries, talking about departments, agencies, as we see. Now, the Uganda Society of Architects, of course, sounded the alarm in you know, this very emphasizing the need to protect the industry from what we call rogue practitioners. So rogue practitioners, I think that's the kind of a person I'll say who listens to the client. I mean, you have to be professional. If I be a doctor and I tell you that, if you be the client and you tell me that my body doesn't take on these medicines, but this is the medicine that you need. For you, you're making that decision, that emotional decision, out of what you feel, but it's not. It doesn't align with the professional standards. So I think we should always take it that way. You're the engineer. Doreen, I've hired you to work on my project. Then why am I advising you on this project in the first place? So where is your professionalism as as somebody that is qualified for that? So we have lots of rogue practitioners in this industry.
That's true. That's true.
And it explains why we have the shakings that we have. Okay, of late we haven't really had quite a lot.
We haven't had any other moment recently?
But, where
maybe the small ones that are unreported.
Perhaps unreported cases or scenarios. But of course, that doesn't mean the country is safe, because clearly, however much we may not have reported, we may not have had cases of scenarios, but we may not know what buildings are in town today and actually stand quite a huge danger to the surroundings, because we are not yet aware of the state onto what these buildings are. But I believe there are quite lots of them that are in a sorry state. Yeah. And it explains why you see currently when you go into the suburbs, actually even those areas that are across town, there is a lot. They're demolishing some of the buildings and reconstructing them afresh, and of course looking into the possible danger that they can pose to the surrounding community a long period of time. Yeah.
But of course, you know, in instances where this has happened, where you've had, you know, casualties because of this, of course, the very first persons that you reach out to, the first institutions in moments such as these that are under the spotlight, the National Building Review Board that is mandated to monitor buildings and to oversee and inspect the operations of building committees. But of course, they will tell you in instances such as this, they do have their groundwork that they keep doing, the monitoring, but then they tell you that so many buildings are mushrooming, especially within the metropolitan area. You have all these buildings mushrooming all over the place. And when they are, you do have, of course, their complaints coming up and saying, of course, you will find a legitimate, you know, professional being fronted. This is a good qualified civil engineer and all the others, the architects and all those as fraternities. But then, of course, what they do is they stamp, they are there in person, maybe they do their rounds every now and then, but whom do they leave on ground? Whom do they leave on ground? Because you won't find them there full time. Whom do they leave on ground? They leave someone who is less professional, maybe who has jumped some of the things he has learned on the job, but then is not that qualified to make some of those professional decisions when needed. And you cannot say there are those ones who are very good, have learned experience via skills, very, very good. But when it comes to the call, can you make that particular call? And when it comes to building, when it comes to any of these construction projects, Andrew, we all know that just 1 millimeter, just 1 little centimeter actually can cause tragedy. Yes, so just a small gap, just a little space in construction. Tweaks. Exactly. So you have to be really on point. You have to be down to it. But of course, we did have, and we will have, of course, between 9 to 10, we will have someone,
of course, an architect.
Yes, coming in to show us how
to elaborate this further.
Exactly.
And actually, in that discussion, we shall take a look at quite a number of interesting aspects. Of course, taking a look at the impact of unqualified engineers, whom we have quite many. We shall be taking a look at building collapse and compliancy, project financing and sustainability, you know, taking a look at the public perception and professional fees, and what we call, you know, the architecture clinic, which is yet to also be there, the symposium, which is actually leading to all these perspectives. And of course, we shall be also breaking down the aspects of professional development and the future of the industry at the same time. But then we also realized that we that, and of course the long-term vision for Uganda's construction sector, the cost-benefit analysis of professional services, and all that, you know, architecture education and training, innovation and risk management in construction. Now, this is what actually is getting my attention. Innovations into the construction industry these days, you know.
A lot is happening.
A lot is happening.
Amazing new, you know, buildings are going up, the plans are up. But then, of course, when it comes to Uganda, the idea about it is that when it comes to Uganda, it is the latest, the kid on the block that takes the fancy. Yes, the latest building, of course, is where most of the Ugandans will go, because they want to be seen there, they want to do it. And this brings to mind a couple of complaints that were received at one time in some of these other, you know, elite hotels. And you did have quite some complaints coming in, especially at the opening of that particular hotels, and they were very particular. They literally would not allow any phones in. For if you were using, I think if you were a different type of clientele and you're coming in and you're not specifically maybe coming in for a workshop or getting into the restaurant area, or you had a prior booking, they would not allow you in to come, because what? Most of the Ugandans, the different Ugandans that were going in were just going in to take a couple of pictures.
To take a look at the
not just taking a look, to take a couple of pictures. You know, selfies and all that, just for social media. So you did have them, you know, in odd places and coming up with that. But that is the fancy as well when it comes to Ugandans. We would, the Ugandans will be very keen on finding out, okay, how is this space? But not necessarily looking at it from a level of how environmentally appropriate are some of these materials that are used inside there. Of course, they will not critique it more or less from the angle of is it green? Is it a green building? Is it this and that? And you are seeing quite a lot of shrubs, a lot of greenery in most of these buildings, especially abroad. And just like we mentioned with Kenya coming up, it's intentional. It is intentional.
Intentional.
Yes, those green walls coming up in some of these buildings, it's intentional. Why? Why? Because there's something that it does.
Yeah.
Definitely. So I think when Ugandans are sometimes getting into this, it's not just concrete and glass as it used to be, and a very beautiful chandelier. It is no longer, that's not appealing at all. And if we backtrack actually and we look at some of the buildings that are notable, especially when it comes to tourism, that have taken accolades in regards to being built with sustainable materials. You do have, of course, buildings in Rwanda. Yes. I think it was something bad something. It has taken on, you can check for it actually, it has taken on it took on quite some interest. And oh my goodness, Andrew, the amounts that they do charge, the amounts that made out of bamboo. It's basically hugely bamboo.
It was made out of bamboo.
Yeah, hugely bamboo.
How sustainable? No, I'm trying to.
Hugely bamboo, but very beautiful, very beautiful.
Is it? Can it really last long?
And this is where bamboo comes into play, because they will tell you that, I don't know why bamboo has not taken off that well in Uganda. Come to think about it. Bamboo has been fronted for quite a number of times. There's even an association, I think, that has been pushing for bamboo in Uganda. Not only just reducing the carbon, emissions, but also because it's very fast growing, very fast growing. And then, of course, you do have the different materials that can be gotten out of bamboo. You do, at one time, they were even, I think, thinking of showcasing in different countries. You do have someone that had made a bike out of bamboo. Yes, in Uganda. Yes, made a bike out of bamboo, then the cups, the cutlery, and all that out of bamboo. But it has not taken off. Maybe it is because we are hugely agricultural, and bamboo is a very evasive plant. You put just one little shrub inside there, and before you know it, in the next 6 months, it will have overtaken Maybe that could come into play.
Okay.
But it is a wonderful material.
I think in Uganda, we haven't been so much having what we call a variety of construction
materials. No.
No, I mean engaging, trying. We have this now. Like we rarely have wooden houses here, So it feels like we are limited in terms of choice of construction materials. That if, for example, if I want to establish a house, put up a house, what I have in mind is bricks, cement, and all that. And I think this has also been very vital. Recently, I saw a report in Kenya where they were talking about fake construction materials, and cement was one of those that were cited a line in terms of that. And I think the fact that there is this huge demand of some of these materials, it kind of affects, it leads to the sources of these materials to actually have some sort of a huge backlog, a huge demand. And the question is, are they in position to actually meet the market demands at the same time? So at the end of the day, you'll find that they may compromise in the quality. If it's happening in Kenya, what is the guarantee that it's not happening in our country? And because we've not taken time to investigate talking about quality, of some of these materials. But as much as, if you flip the coin onto the other side, as much as we normally blame, the question is, who is to blame? The clients, the architects, the civil engineers, but have we looked keenly into the quality of some of these materials that is actually produced? Like I've said, the rate at which buildings are mushrooming clearly indicates huge demand for construction materials.
Yeah.
And now it pushes me back to the factories, to the industries that are actually manufacturing these materials. How are they keeping up this demand? Won't they be forced to make decisions that are actually quite unhealthy? You know, in terms of since they need to produce for the masses because they need now quantity and too much and fast, delivered fast.
Definitely.
Because exactly. So it brings me to that question: how sure are we that it doesn't make them compromise on the quality to meet the demands at that time of the market? That's what I'm thinking.
No, I think the same has been piloted, and you do have studies in Western Africa which had very beautiful, you know, traditional housing. Architecture actually was awesome. Up to now, it is one, especially when you look at the very the high-rise buildings that they had during that time. It's still one of those debatable things that we get to talk about in Western Africa. But of course, you do have as well some of the architecture down. Very interesting research findings there. When you have like in Southern Africa as well. But what was the idea? Not even just in Uganda. When you look at what the Buganda Kingdom really has right here, when you're looking back at the different materials that they use, these are materials, of course, that needed the annual days when you knew that you're going to have to replaster, like our Mada and Wato houses. This was done. Our forefathers did that, at least our grandparents did that a little bit. You knew when you were going to go back and put a little bit of limestone on that Mada and Wato house and redecorate it. And up to now, if you still are moving right up through Abim and some of the areas in northern Uganda, and even in the eastern area, you will find particularly the women going through and looking for that the thatch, to go and rethatch the houses and things. But when you look at the different comparisons, especially when it comes to housing and how these buildings, not only were they just sustainable, but you also have the fact that they did play quite a crucial role, like in the environment. You do have the fact that they kept not only just the aesthetics there involved, they kept the rooms very, very cool. You do have places like in Soroti where till today they do prefer that round way of building. Yes, you do have that round way of building because it allows in quite the air to circulate much better than in any square, in a square format. But of course, the direct implication, the direct impact to the environment is huge. Now, when it comes, of course, to thatch and using reeds and all that, of course, how sustainable is it? How long can they go? They may not necessarily be so long term, but would be looking at short term. But you do have, especially in Western Africa, you do have a number of persons that have come out to try and see how they can modernize that, some of those materials that were used way back to modernize. And I believe in one of the different housing or the pilot projects that I saw, they of course incorporated as part of cleaning up the environment. They did build something within a school format, a community school format. They got bottles and then packed them with soil and actually used that to build.
To construct.
Yes, to construct.
I think I've seen those such houses that have been constructed in that line. But of course, they always pose these questions of how sustainable is it in case of weather? Can it be able to withstand all that? But I think if we can adapt such measures, you know, incorporating the circular economy into into the construction phase, we can have a sort of a balanced, you know, kind of a harmony, whereby we know that for residential, can I say commercial buildings, office setups, perhaps they can use these kinds of materials. But for residentials, we can actually adapt. If we can see how we can make those bottled houses a little bit much more sustainable and they can withstand, I think we shall have various...
elements.
Yeah, those elements. If we have various... If I think of construction of constructing a house and I can have various options, I can use wood, I can use bottles, I think it will kind of create a balance, other than all of us demanding for the same
thing. You do remember that time when the interlocking blocks were quite heavy, quite a big topic, and you had so many go out and buy those machines for the interlocking blocks. But look currently at, I think it is the Mukwano fence, when you're looking down as you head to Kibuli. That fence is actually, I think, was built with interlocking blocks. But it is literally disintegrating. It is falling apart. That particular section, the entire, very unfortunate. So because even when they use the different, the finishing, once it's begun raining and raining, then the finishing of the fence, the wall fence, actually just disintegrated, and now the inside of those interlocking blocks have literally been washed away by the rain. But it gives you just an insight into what you're talking about. Is it long term? Is it short term? But please join us from 9 to 10. We will be hosting someone here, giving us some insight, of course, into innovation in Uganda's construction sector, integrating green technologies for a modern industry. You have quite a number of different techniques, building materials that are out there, but how sustainable is it? And has Uganda really at the moment embraced the green technologies and the green buildings as well? And do you know anything about them? Please get onto our social media pages. You can find us on X, Facebook, as well as YouTube. Drop us an opinion, or even share a picture of one of your green buildings that you prefer in Uganda. We will definitely talk about it here. Smart Means Business. For now, let's take a short break. We will be back with sports and entertainment.